No, that's really helpful. I know Angie on the call is just asking about the different people involved in managing the project, and we'll get onto that a little bit more for how you actually went through that process. You said on our blog as well that you are really great at keeping good records, and you've also shared this app that your builder used. So I think they're both really great tips for people going through this process on how that helped you.
Yeah, I don't know if the builder shared the app with me straight away, and whether it was because I'd asked so many questions throughout the process. He was like, it'll be easier if we give her our app. But yeah, I am pretty good at keeping like every kind of detail of communication I've had, not just for this, but like for um all my NDIS related tasks, and it's mainly just in like email folders. So I kept all my quotes and floor plans and that kind of thing. So if I ever needed something, I could quickly just kind of like pull it up and refer to it. I think so much changes when renovations are happening that having like even just the floor plan on your phone. So if the builder asks you a question like, oh, can we move this 2 centimeters? You can kind of like have a look and make sure it's going to work. But
Great.
yeah, I think I mentioned to Sarah before the call that my builder also had an app that he allowed me to join, which had a calendar of when all his trades were coming in. So I could see, like, on Wednesday this week, the electrician was coming, and, next week the plumber was coming. So it meant that I could see when things were happening without having to reach out to him directly. He also shared photos when a job or a stage of the renovation was completed, so I knew what was going on without asking.
Yeah, it sounds incredibly helpful and transparent through that process. And
I actually don't know if all builders do that, but
oh, I don't think
how
so.
amazing.
Just great, especially when you're living off-site, and we'll get onto that in a minute as well. Um, so yeah, really good tips I think there for people to think about when you are engaging a builder to understand what the processes are, because in a bathroom modification, nearly every trade is needed. You know, from the carpenters, the plumbers, the electricians, the tilers, the waterproofers, everyone. So there's a lot of coordination in the process,
Yeah,
and they
big
can't
job.
necessarily all be in that little space at the one time. So I think project management there is really important, and mindful that you're out of home and you've gone through the process to have NDIS approval for MTA as well. So just for anyone on the call, MTA is medium term accommodation, and it is funded by the NDIS for people that may need to move out of home during home modifications. You obviously can't stay at home if you don't have a safe bathroom to use. So this is a really important line item and support from the NDIS to assist people. MTA is just that ability for you to move out of home and then back into home. And we assist a lot of people with that. And I think on our side, our care navigator, I think it was Noel and Alicia, worked with you, Ash, to look at the different options available, trying to keep in mind that somewhere close to home is really helpful, because you're needing to check in, and that's where your community are, but also proximity to work, lots of different things depending on individual needs. And I think in general on our side, we would recommend in the planning to try and get onto that as soon as possible. You can book that, or start looking at those options well ahead of time to ensure that properties are available for that length of time. And it's a little bit different for home modification. MTA funding, depending on the nature of the modification, but it tends to be funded at about 6 or 7 weeks for this type of work. So, um, Ash, you did have a chat to Noel early on about MTA. Were there any specific other requests you had when you were
Um,
looking at the right MTA?
I guess I spoke to Noel really early on just about what I needed to do to get MTA included in my plan. And I felt like that was probably the easiest part of the process, which I don't know if it is for other people, but it was fairly straightforward for me. Probably also because I only have one bathroom, so um, it wasn't like there was some somewhere else I could use in the meantime. But and it definitely looked like a construction zone, my house, so I definitely wasn't able to stay there. But yeah, I spoke to Noel about getting it included, and um, it turned out it was quite straightforward. I just got my OT to mention it in the report that she submitted. Didn't really go into detail at that point. It wasn't until um, my plan was being built with the planner that I actually, the planner asked me questions about why it was necessary and whether or not I could go and stay with family or friends, which they don't have accessible bathrooms. So kind of also defeats the whole reason why I was getting this done in the first place. But I had to get a letter from my OT at that point. So this is while the plan was being built. So I had to get a letter from my OT saying why it was necessary. I then had to get a letter from the builder estimating how long it would take for the renovation to be done. And yeah, at that point, they just included it was a 5 week process. So I got 5 weeks of MTA funding included in my plan. So it was actually pretty straightforward. But yeah, interesting that that's kind of all done separate to the report. It's done when they're actually building the plan.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And I think for you, I'm sure through all of your hard work and record keeping as well, Ash, it did go quite smoothly. For people where it may be a little more complex, one of the roles of the care navigators is just to be checking in throughout that process to ensure that if you do need an extension, that the funding is there and approved in your plan, because we absolutely wouldn't want to get to the point where you're learning sort of in the final week that there's some delays and that you need to go about getting additional approvals from your planners and things.
Yeah.
So the more we can do that up front, the more peace of mind you've got at a pretty hectic time.
And that is something I definitely didn't think of, and so grateful that Alicia brought it up with me. I kind of got to like the 3.5 week point, nearly the 4 week point, and I was like, I've only got 1 week left of funding. Are they really gonna get the job finished by then? So I started to worry a little bit, but my builder assured me that um it would all be done, or at least finished to the point of being able to move back in, and any kind of like small little things that he could do. He could just kind of like drop around and finish one day. But yeah, I was lucky that I didn't need to get an extension. But yeah, I was really, I guess, grateful that that was mentioned to me because I hadn't even considered that. So yeah.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot to think about, isn't there, through the process?
Definitely. But yeah, I mean, even just having the MTA organized, it really just I guess you don't really realize how stressful it is living at home until you stay in somewhere that just works. So like having accessible accommodation where I could stay throughout meant that, I didn't have to worry about going to the bathroom or having a shower, and I could go to the toilet safely, and just made such a big difference. So yeah, I was really, really grateful.
Yeah, what a process. Gosh, it's incredible what you sort of adapt to over that period of time, isn't it? And just you really didn't have an option but to make it work until you got to this point of moving out and then moving back home. And you have shared that this is your dream bathroom. It is absolutely beautiful. You've just created a space that meets your individual needs and yeah, just clearly has been so well considered through the design and accessibility. You shared in our blog, after living more than 10 years without a properly accessible setup, the impact has been massive. I finally have a space that feels safe, functional, and genuinely mine. Most of all, I love being home.
Yeah. I feel like you need to show the photo of the bathroom, or are you waiting for a big reveal? Um,
It's worth the
it's
reveal. You can
yeah,
see
just
that here. Let's look at the details and each of the things that you considered.
I guess like this is designed purely for what works for me. It's not going to be 100% accessible for everyone, but um that's where I guess the OT and the builder and project manager in my case was so good at listening into what I needed and making sure everything worked exactly for my needs. So um even just things like putting the grab rail in next to the toilet, putting the you can just kind of see at the picture on the right, there's a drop down shower seat, which I was, yeah, pretty happy about. But they got me back in at kind of like the last week to measure it to make sure it was at the heights that I needed. So, um, yeah, I didn't want them to get it wrong. I think you go through this whole process and everything's just about done. I was like worried that what if the shower seat's too high or the grab rail's in the wrong spot, but they made sure to get me back in and measure it all so it was done perfectly. So that was great. But like obviously such a huge difference being able to roll under the sink.
Yes,
Um,
that's
amazing
clearly one of the changes.
being able to reach the tap. Um, yeah, makes a huge difference. Even things that I didn't think of um beforehand works so much better for me, like having a single mixer by the shower. So you just have to turn it on with one tap. Can you see the shower
Uh,
mixer?
Yeah, over here. So you've got a
Yeah,
really nice long handle there at the right height. So
yeah,
you can be here or you can be on the chair. And some noting that these rails are here are very solid
yeah,
too.
definitely.
Great to hold on to.